Now I have dx, dy, dz as the volume. So q dot into dx, dy, dz. Change of internal energy is what? Rho c dx, dy, dz into dt by dt. Now if I add all the things, I get an equation which is del square t by del x square plus del square t by del y square plus del square t by del z square equal to q by t 1 by alpha del t by del t. Remember, here up to this point, we did not add any flow. So this equation you can write as what? As we have studied in the vector, this equation you write as what? You can write as, say, suppose del square. Okay, this is the Laplacian del square t. Okay, plus what? Plus you have the term here q by k, then 1 by alpha del t by del tau. So you write here q dot by k, okay, equal to 1 by alpha. Alpha is the thermal diffusivity, del of t, okay, by del of tau t, where t is the time and this t is the temperature. So this is your total heat conduction equation. I am just writing this in the form of the Laplacian, right? What type of equation? What type of equation is this? What type of equation is this? This is, you can see, this is a parabolic partial differential equation. Okay, I just give you the assignment that if you just do a b square minus 4ac for this particular equation, you will see this will become equal to 0, and that will give you the. Yeah, please mute. Please mute. Please mute your microphones. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. So this k by alpha is equal to k by rho c, where k is the thermal conductivity, rho is the density, and c is the capacity. Okay, c is the specific heat for the material. Since this is liquid or solid, so this is only c. If it is a gas, it will be either become Cp or Cv. Okay, so this is your three-dimensional conduction equation with heat generation. Now, say suppose if I go for steady state, this will become 0. dt by dt will become 0. If I ignore the term of generation, this will become 0. So what will happen in that situation? I can really expect that this is going to be 0. Okay, for no generation term, this is going to be 0 when I have a steady state situation. So what should I get in this situation? I may get an equation which is del square t is equal to 0. Okay, now this gives me the situation where this becomes a Laplace equation. You can really think about that this becomes a Laplace equation. Okay, kindly mute your microphones. Okay, otherwise it will come in the recording. Later on you will not be able to see it. Great. Now once that happens, so you can really go for a transformation here. So this is what we skipped in the yesterday's class. So we are going to learn a few tricks here, that once I know this equation, without memorizing, how do I get the equations for cylindrical coordinate and spherical coordinate system? So for that, I just have to learn two simple tricks. What is the first simple trick? That says, suppose I have x, y, z as my Cartesian coordinate system, and I choose an arbitrary point P here, okay, whose location is x, y, and z. This P has a position vector of x, y, z, xi, yj, and zk. Okay, so I put a position vector P which has a coordinate of x, y, and z. And how do I define that to be a kind of a position vector in the cylindrical coordinate system? I say that this is nothing but r theta z in the cylindrical coordinate system. Okay, So this is the representative of cylindrical coordinate system, and this is the representative of the spherical coordinate system. So for a cylindrical coordinate system, I assume that around Z there is a cylinder, and here what I assume that around X, Y, Z there is a sphere. And on the surface of the cylinder, I place a point whose coordinate system is X, Y, Z. And that point I define as R, theta, and Z. How do I define R? Say, suppose if I project this point into XY plane, okay. Now this position vector I call as R. So the projected point of P on the XY plane, I call this as R. And this R making an angle with the x-axis, I call that as theta. Okay. Now once we do that, then the entire job is very easy. So X is what? How do you do X? X you can write that if R is this vector, X will be equal to R cos theta. What is Y? Y will be equal to R sin theta. Okay, and what will be Z? Z will remain Z. So this is the transformation that I have to enforce. X equal to R cos theta, Y equal to R sin theta, and Z equal to Z. Now, if I do a reverse transformation, here I am writing X and X, Y, Z in terms of R, theta, and Z. If I write R, theta, and Z in terms of X, Y, so what this will give me only R is equal to root over X square plus Y square. Theta equal to tan inverse Y by X. Okay. And Z is equal to Z. So you can see this is the mapping and this is the inverse mapping. This is the mapping of X to R theta Z, and this is the inverse mapping of R theta Z to X. This is the first step. Now, how the same argument goes for a spherical coordinate system? I just choose a point P on the surface of the sphere. This point P is on the surface of the cylinder. So you can think about in the Z direction, there is an infinite cylinder, which is having a radius of R. Okay, and that R radius is making an angle theta with respect to my position coordinate X. Rest, this is the transformation, and this is the forward transformation. This is the forward mapping. Okay, and this is the inverse mapping. On the other hand, if I just imagine a sphere here on top of that a point P, so what I do, I now define the position vector R as the radius of this R is the scalar, which is the radius I join directly to the sphere surface. Okay. And then what I say that there is this, now this R can be resolved into two different directions. One is in the Z direction, which I call the angle to be theta. And one will be in the XY plane. Okay. So what is Z? So Z will become then R cos theta. And what is this vector? This vector will become then R sin theta. The projected one, which is on the XY plane, this will become R sin theta. Okay. Now, once that happens, what I do, this projected vector, I define an angle phi. You can define that way also. You define an angle phi here. So what will be X? This is my R sin theta, and this is my X. So this will become R sin theta cos phi, because now I am projecting R sin theta into X, where the angle is phi. So this will become R sin theta cos phi, whereas this will become R sin theta sin phi. And then you can see that this is nothing but the mapping of XYZ into R, theta, and phi. Okay. Now, if I really accumulate everything together, if I do an inverse mapping, R will be equal to root over of X square plus Y square plus Z square. Theta will be equal to tan inverse root over of X square Y square divided by Z, and phi will be equal to tan inverse Y by X. So this is the forward mapping, and this is the inverse mapping. Now, once I have done that, I have to remember a very simple trick, which is given here. Okay, what is this? That kindly turn off your audios. Okay, please don't turn on. It is creating problem. Okay. Okay, thank you. So you can see here, I think my slides are visible. Am I correct? Can anybody tell me? My slides are visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Yes, thank you. So you can see that at the bottom of the slide that I have to give a transformation of a variable chi, which is in the x, y, and z coordinate, to a psi, which is in the r, theta, and z coordinate. Okay, how do I do that? I do this way. So first, I say that this variable chi, okay, which is what? Which is a function of psi, right? And psi is a function of what? Psi is a function of r, theta, and z. Okay, so if I try to write what is the variation of the chi, then what will happen? This will become del psi by del r dr plus this we have used in the last class, last class, del psi by del theta d theta, and then I have del psi by del z dz. Okay. Now what I do, I want this d chi to be what? I want to now evaluate del of this chi by del of x, which is this chi is what? This chi is a function of, I know that this chi is a function of what? This chi is a function of x, y, and z. Okay. And then I am trying to make a transformation to the psi. So my first objective to really obtain del chi by del x, then this will be del chi by del y, and this will be del chi by del z. So this means, I have kept here y and z to be constant. So how will it happen? So you may see then this particular equation will become what? Del psi by del r into del r by del x. Okay, I expect all of you should be doing on a piece of pen and paper because it will be important. It is required. Maybe once I finish it, it will be required. Now what will be d theta? Del psi by del theta. And then you have del theta by. So essentially I'm converting this differential, ordinary differentials into partial differentials. So since I'm dividing everything with x, dr by dx, del r by del x, partial differential, again y and z are constant here, del theta by del z, y and z are constant here, and then I will have what? I will have del psi by del z, and then with what? Dz by del z. Sorry, this will be del z, this will be del z, by del x. And what are the three variables we had? X is equal to what? X is equal to what we have learned. X will be equal to r cos theta. Okay. Y is equal to what? Y is equal to r sin theta. And z is equal to what? Z equal to z. This is what is my transformation I am doing from the Cartesian coordinate system to cylindrical coordinate system. So can somebody evaluate for me this del r by del x, del theta by del x, and del z by del x? All of you. Okay. Please evaluate this. Please evaluate this quickly. What is that? What you have to evaluate? You know this is to be true. I'm just giving you the slide, this one. So you know this is to be true. You know this is to be true. So x equal to, just write down x equal to r cos theta, y equal to r sin theta, z equal to z. R is equal to what? Root over x square plus y square, theta equal to tan inverse y by x, and z equal to z. What you have to evaluate? You have to evaluate del r by del x, del theta by del x, and del z by del x. Can you quickly do it? Anybody has completed it? I know by now you will complete it. Ankit, can you tell me what have you obtained? Del r by del x. So what is r? R is equal to what? R is equal to?
Sir, I am doing.
R is equal to root over x square plus y square. Okay. So what will be equal to del r by del x? Anybody has obtained del r by del x? Prathu, there is a comment that we have to make everybody as attendee. Okay. So please allow them. I think some are in the queue unable to join. Please allow them to join. Okay. Yeah, Bhargav, could you figure it out? How much is del r by del x?
Sir, yes, it's x by root over x square plus y square, which is equal to cos theta.
Cos theta, correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Now the second term, which is del theta by del x. How much is del theta by del x? Where should I start? I should be starting theta equal to tan inverse y by x, right? So r equal to root over x square plus y square, you got cos theta. Now theta equal to tan inverse y by x, what will be del theta by del x? Harshit, could you get del theta by del x? This part? So theta equal to what? Theta is equal to tan inverse y by x. Anybody who could get it? Manish Kumar Yadav, could you get it? High school math. Nupur Sharma, are you there? Nupur? Arihant,
Yes, sir.
could you get it?
Yes, sir.
How much is del theta by del x?
1 minute, sir. It's minus 1. Minus y by x square 1 plus y square plus y x square.
In terms of sine theta, r, theta, and z, if you replace,
In terms of r theta and z.
x square plus y square will be r square.
Yes, sir.
You can replace that. And then y will be r sine theta, x will be r cos theta. So how much you are getting?
minus r sine theta by r square, that is minus sine theta by r.
So now you can see, all of you can see that initially what was obtained for r equal to, if r will be equal to root over x square plus y square. So dr by dx will be what? You will see once you replace, you will get cos theta. And d theta dx is what? You will get minus sine theta by r. Correct? Am I correct? So del x, and then you can see that del z by del x will be 0 because you are taking a differential of z with respect to x. So you can see, we can clearly evaluate del x will be equal to what? Del x will be cos theta del r, sine theta minus sine theta by r del theta, and 0 del z. Similarly, you can obtain, so this is the way we have obtained what? Del x. Okay, for psi. Similarly, you can obtain what? Similarly, you can obtain for del y and del z. So this will be the transformation. If you impose in this equation twice, you end up getting this equation for the cylindrical coordinate system. Okay. Now the same here, that this is the transformation. So for r theta phi, this is the relationship with x, y, z with r theta phi. Now, if you evaluate, again, I am using the same analogy. Again, I am using the same analogy that I have used in this particular derivation. Okay. Now, if I use the same analogy here, I will be able to really evaluate del x, del y, and del z. This is associated with the spherical coordinate system. So I request all of you to do this assignment. Please remember that I will ask. I mean, generally I tell these in the classes, right? I mean, I will ask this question in the quiz. Okay, so one of the common questions of your quiz can be, transforming this. I'll just say that for spherical coordinate, I want del r component of del y. Okay, and you have to evaluate. Correct. So what you should do, you should start from here. You do del r by del x, del theta by del x, and del phi by del x. So then you will get all these three terms. If you do with respect to y, you will get all these three terms. If you do with respect to phi, you will get all these three terms. And then if you do twice and replace in your Cartesian coordinate system equation, you end up getting this. So I request all of you to perform these transformations, okay? And practice so that you become comfortable with the cylindrical and Cartesian coordinate systems. You need not remember anything. You can, if you do meticulously these processes, you will be able to really generate those cylindrical and Cartesian coordinate equation, spherical coordinate equations. Once that is done, then now you can really see that steady state one-dimensional equation from this equation. What is steady state? This is done. Generation term 0, this is gone. One dimension means these two 0. So you end up getting the equation which looks like d square t by dx square equal to 0. Now t, what is the solution of t? C1x plus C2, that means a linear. So you may see that temperature profile will be linear. Okay. If you start with the cylindrical equation, this is the cylindrical equation. If you go for a 2D or if you go for a 1D steady state conduction, what will happen? Steady state means this time derivative will be 0. This generation term will be 0. One dimensional means you will only retain the r coordinate equations. Phi and z or theta and z coordinate equations you will remove. So what will you get? You will get d square t by dr square plus 1 by r dt by dr equal to 0. Okay. In this equation, if you retain the heat generation term, it will look like this. If these equations become two dimensions, two-dimension equation become like this. So you can really see, you can create an array of differential equations. This is what we were discussing in the first two lectures, that we can really generate an array of differential equations, and we can solve those differential equations in order to really see what is the temperature profile. What is the purpose of getting the temperature profile? If we get the temperature profile, we will know how much heat is. Temperature gives me the estimate of the heat, and heat will give me the estimate of how much energy is required for this particular engineering system. Okay. Now here one important factor is that, see the thermal conductivity. We are studying this parameter called K. What is the use of this parameter? You know that if K is more, that means the rate of heat transfer will be more. If K is less, the rate of heat transfer will be less. So what is K? K is nothing but, it's watt. Watt means, the rate of heat transfer per meter degree centigrade. You can see that for insulators, okay, it is very less. And for like, for metals and all, it is very high. The other properties of K, say suppose you can see metals, non-metallic solids, liquids, gases. As you go from top to bottom, you will see typically the thermal conductivity will reduce. In SI, the unit is watt per meter degree centigrade or watt per meter Kelvin, and in FPS, the unit is British thermal unit per hour feet degree Fahrenheit. Okay. And there is a conversion factor. Please work out the conversion factor. Now, one very important facet of thermal conductivity, that it is a function of temperature. You may see that if you increase the temperature, the thermal conductivity of gases increases. Okay, thermal conductivity of liquid increases and then decreases. Okay, some of the thermal conductivity of liquids remains constant. However, some of the thermal conductivity of metal that reduce, and in some of the metals this increase, and some of the metal it remains constant. So K has one consequence, thermal conductivity has one consequence, that it can be a function of temperature. It is not exactly a constant. So that's why you just have to make sure that whenever you are reporting K, you have to report the thermal conductivity at a particular temperature. It should not be at all temperatures, because the temperature, with temperature, the thermal conductivity may change. Great. Now, from where the temperature dependence arrives? So let us first understand this particular geometry. Using kinetic theory of gases, you can straight away tell that thermal conductivity will be a function of temperature. Of course, this doesn't map one-to-one with the metals. But then, say suppose if you take a very dilute gas, say suppose oxygen molecules are there, nitrogen molecules are there, hydrogen molecules are there. They are very sparsely populated and under a very chaotic motion, and then bombarding on the wall at some point of time. Okay, so you assume that the temperature at a particular place, okay, that is to be T, that is Ty, and a little bit above this is Ty plus A, and this is Ty minus A. So in a differential situation where you have three layers of gases, where the distance between the layers are A, okay, the mean free path between the two molecules, two molecule before collision is lambda. This lambda is called the mean free path, and this A is 2/3 of lambda. These are all taken, these are numbers all taken from the kinetic theory, which has been explained by this Chapman-Enskog kinetic theory of gases. And this particular place is taken from the Bird-Stewart-Lightfoot, where it has been defined how exactly you arrive Fourier's law for a simple gas. Okay, and what is the definition of the thermal conductivity? So what is the assumption here? Say suppose you have a closed vessel, you have a vessel like this, and in this vessel, this gas that is there inside is a very dilute gas. Very small number of molecules are there in this dilute gas, and they are moving around. Now, in this situation, what is assumed that whatever heat is generated in this closed system, it is because of these motions of these particles. They are incessantly moving in different direction in a chaotic manner with a large mean free path. Okay, they are very sparsely populated and they are colliding with the wall. So from kinetic theory of gases, you say that the mean, or this is also called the RMS speed, it is nothing but root over of 8 kT by pi m, and which comes from where you say that whatever heat is generated is because of the kinetic energy, average kinetic energy, and from there you get this mean molecular speed. Okay, now this gives you what is the mean wall collision frequency per unit area. This Z is the wall collision frequency per unit area, and this lambda gives you the mean free path. Mean free path means, after collision and before next collision, how much average these particles are traveling. Okay. Now, using this concept only, you can say that whatever temperature is generated, 3 by 2 kT is nothing but equal to half mu square. Now, once you have these things in mind, you can say that specific heat per unit volume is a closed system. That's why I'm going for the change in internal energy with respect to temperature. Okay, that what you can do, you can be, translated into what? This kT can be translated into, you say that mean translation energy per molecule under equilibrium condition is this. Okay, and this translation energy is nothing but your total internal energy, which comes out, CV comes out to be 3 by 2R, which is consistent. Okay, generally CP is 5 by 2R and CV is 3 by 2R, and 5 by 2R minus 3 by 2R is R, which is CP minus CV. This is what you are studying in thermodynamics. So now if I have a set of parameters like this, then what I do, I define that there is a diffusion of temperature in a gas from this layer to 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 this layer, something like that. And there is a temperature gradient. This is a high temperature, this is a low temperature, and the temperature is diffusing from one place to the other place. And what is the mode of diffusion here? Particles are moving like this, and then it is hitting the wall, and that is the way the heat conduction is taking place, or heat transfer is taking place. So what is the starting point? I say that Q at Y is what? The kinetic energy here minus the kinetic energy here, with this Z is wall collision frequency per unit area, because this many times only it will happen. Right? Now, if you do that, and then if you replace all these parameters, you end up getting, say mu square is replaced by half kT, and then Z, if you replace, you get a parameter like this. Okay, which can be the Qy. That means this direction, the rate of heat transfer. Now, what you may say that Ty minus A is what? Ty minus this A is what? A is 2/3 of lambda. This is your lambda. The distance between the mean free path is lambda, and A is the layer distance is 2/3 of lambda. So what you can say that Ty minus A is 2/3 of lambda del T by del Y, and Ty plus A, Ty plus 2/3 of lambda del T by del Y. If you combine these two, so you get Qy is equal to half of Nk U bar lambda dt by dy. So you straight away see the Fourier's law of heat conduction is coming. If I just combine these two here, from the temperature gradient, I may straight away get the Fourier law. And if I accumulate all these in terms of Cv, in terms of kappa, in terms of n, in terms of lambda, in terms of t, I replace temperature associated with Cv and all. So what I get k, which is a function of what? Which is a function of Boltzmann constant, temperature, Cv, and d square. So straight away you can see that K has, for a monoatomic gas, K has a dependence on the temperature, which was reflected root over T, which was reflected here. This is for a monoatomic, very dilute gas with no physical presence. But then of course, for materials with having physical presence, you will see something very different. So this is the basis of temperature difference of thermal conductivity. The same way you can really go for the temperature difference of viscosity. Same way you can go for the temperature difference of the diffusivity of the material. So whenever something diffuses, the diffusion constant, it can be momentum diffusion, it can be thermal diffusion, it can be mass diffusion. All these diffusion processes, they are accompanied by a constant. Okay, that is a material property, and that material property has a temperature dependence, and that can be derived from the kinetic theory of gases. I have just given you the derivation just to keep the perspective open, and you can see that these are also different types of dependence. It has dependence on different types of other parameters, like say suppose the specific heat, okay, say suppose the distance d, okay, say suppose the mass m, okay. So these are all different other lambda, the mean free path. So these are all dependent parameters. Great. Now, once we have done that, this we were discussing that, any rate of heat transfer can be any rate of heat transfer. What is the rate of heat transfer? Say suppose Q, the heat is coming, and then you have got, say suppose 3 layers through which, say you can think about, there is a plaster coating, then there are bricks, and then there is another plaster coating outside the wall. Inside the wall, there is a plaster coating. there is a brick, and then outside the wall there is a plaster coating, and then say suppose there is heat, this is from outside, and this is the heat that is there inside your house. Okay, and you want to know that only Q amount of heat that is going to come from outside, although the temperature difference remains to be, say suppose this is a higher temperature and say suppose this is a lower temperature. Suppose the sun beating is taking place here, and suppose your inner part of house is here. So T4 is less, T3 is a little bit higher than T4, T2 is a little bit higher than T3, and then you have one which is at a highest temperature or the ambient temperature. In this situation, if you really want to calculate what is the total temperature difference, how do you do that? You do like say suppose T4 minus T1, and then what you do, you divide by the total resistance. It is just like an electronic or electrical circuit. How is that? I interpret this particular point, okay, and this particular point as the points of potential difference. Say suppose the scalar was the voltage in case of an electricity. This is at higher voltage, this is at lower voltage. Okay. And then since you had a metal in the middle, what happened? It resisted the flow of the electrons. And that's the reason, you know, a part of this potential is discharged, not the whole part. If the resistance was not there, this potential would have been equal to this potential immediately. Since the resistance was there, so what happened? This dissipation of energy is progressive, is gradual, and slowly this part is trying to achieve the potential of this part. Right? Now I can assume that at point 1 you have T1, and then if you have a plaster, you know, it is probing a resistance RA. Now if you have the bricks, it is probing a resistance RB because the material is different, and then you have another plastering, you know, which is probing a resistance RC, which is causing the temperature to change from T1 to T4, keeping the rate of heat transfer to be constant, which is coming from outside to inside. Correct? Now, what I can do, I can say that this Q is here at Q, and this is here at Q, and this is here at Q. So I can say that Q is equal to minus Ka T1 minus T2 by delta Xa is equal to minus Kb. This is a steady state heat conduction. So I just equate all three of them, which is going to give me the equation for what is T4 minus T1 is what? Delta Xa by Kaa, delta Xb by Kba, and delta Xc by Kca. A is what? A is this cross section. The cross section means the vertical through which the heat is transported. So this delta Xa by Ka, this is called the resistance Ra. Delta Xb by Kba is called the resistance Rb, and delta Xc by resistance is called Rc. Your total rate of heat transfer equation is the driving force, which is T1 minus T4, this delta T overall by summation of all the resistances that are coming on the way. So thermal potential difference by thermal resistance, heat flow is equal to thermal potential difference by thermal resistance. Some assignments are given with your problems, so please carry out those problems. How to calculate these resistance and all these things. This is very, very similar to the electric flow of electricity. Is what? The electrical potential difference divided by the electrical resistance. Okay. Now, if I put a brick wall like this rather than this, okay, I have three different materials here, right? When the heat is flowing in this direction, and if you have multiple elements, then this is a series configuration. Whereas if you have different materials like this, like FG, like BCD, you know, this leads to a parallel configuration. Okay, and you have to calculate the equivalent resistance just the way you calculate the equivalent resistance for the electric field. And then what you have to do, you have to put the total resistance at the bottom in order to get the total rate of heat transfer. Okay, so this is simple. So R is equal to delta T by Qa. Now let us progress a little bit more complicated. What is that? So suppose I have a cylindrical surface, and in this cylindrical surface there is a radius which is called the inner radius. This is basically a cylindrical shell. So there is a gas that is there in the middle. So suppose a gas is flowing in the middle, okay, which is at certain temperature, which is at temperature Ti, and then outside temperature is To. And then you have the cylinder. So how do you do that? So your area here is 2 pi RL. This is what is the difference between this and that. Here area is delta X by delta Y. Area is not delta Y by delta Z. Delta X is in the direction, delta Y into delta Z. Here, for a cylinder, area is a function of R. Okay, and QR is nothing but Ka dt by dr. This is, I have just converted into the cylindrical coordinate. So Q was Ka dt by dx. That has been converted into the cylindrical coordinate. Now, if this is AR, what you do, this AR is replaced by 2 pi RL into K into dt by dr. So QR will become 2 pi KRL into dt by dr. Now T equal to Ti at this particular point, and T equal to To at this. This is Ri, this is Ro, this is Ri, this is Ro. You define two boundary conditions here. And if you solve these equations, what will happen? Now you may see here, this is dr by r. Okay, this has a correlation as dr by r. So if you really integrate, Q at r is this. Now the total Q will become, now when you integrate dr by r, you will get ln r by r0. So 2 pi KL. If you solve this particular problem, you will get the solution Q, which is the heat transfer, net rate of heat transfer will become 2 pi KL Ti minus Tu divided by ln r by r0. So you may see that here, when the resistance was linear, here the resistance has RTH. So you just leave about T by T0. And then if you just summarize the whole thing, ln R0 by Ri divided by 2 pi KL, this becomes the resistance. Now, if you have R1, R2, R3, R4, say suppose you have, this is your inner side where the gas is flowing. Say this is where you have insulation layer 1. Say suppose this is where you have insulation layer. So suppose you have a very hot gas flowing inside the cylinder and you don't want this heat to be dissipated out. What should you do? You put different layers of insulation, R1, R2, R3, R4, something like that. So see, this is T1, this is T4. How the total resistance is to be computed? So this is T1. So R1 is how much? Ln R2 by R1, 2 pi KAL. This is material A. Okay. So what will be the RB? RB will be ln R2 by R3, 2 pi KBL. Okay. What will be RC? RC will be ln R4 by R3, 2 pi KCL. So you can see this is a series resistance, and what will be the Q? 2 pi L T1 minus T4, which is the total driving force divided by what? Divided by the total resistance, but this resistance is associated with the cylindrical coordinate system. Okay, this resistance, total resistance, is associated with the cylindrical coordinate system. Now, what will happen to sphere? For a sphere, so sphere, this A will become what? This A will become 4 pi r square. And if you integrate over it, you will see that instead of getting ln r by r0, this will become dr by r square. And if you integrate over it, you will get 1 by ri minus 1 by r0. So different types of geometries, you can really calculate this Q just by changing the equation of the geometry. This was not there in case of your, when you did +2 and all, this geometrical part were not there. Okay. Okay. Now, let us go for a little bit more complicated situation that, see, gradually when you learn this modeling and all, what you have to do, you have to also learn, how to implement this in the engineering problems. So finally, if you look at the syllabus, what are the devices, what are the engineering devices that we are targeting? Say suppose there is a heat exchanger. What is a heat exchanger? There is a fluid A, which is either hot or cold. Let us consider this is a hot fluid. And then there is a fluid B that is coming, that is a cold fluid. The purpose of the cold fluid is to cool down this hot fluid. So when it enters here at point 1, it has a very high temperature. And as it goes downstream, what will happen? My job will be to cool it down to a particular temperature. Whereas fluid B will come as a cold fluid and it will become hot fluid. Okay. So what do you expect? Where exactly the heat transfer is taking place? why we are doing this cylindrical geometry, Cartesian coordinate, this and that, you can straight away see that this pipe is a cylindrical pipe. And there is a fluid that is flowing outside. There is a fluid that is flowing inside. Okay, and I can simplify the system that this is the wall. This particular wall is designed like this, that this is the solid wall of the pipe. So outside, there is a fluid A, which is at this fluid A. I just thought that this fluid A is hotter. So yes, so TA is hot. This fluid is cooling down to certain extent. Okay, and then on the wall there is a temperature drop, and then at the outside when the fluid is flowing, there is a reduction in temperature. So here one concept that you need to understand, that whenever there is a surface, say suppose you have a surface like this, okay, which is a rigid surface. Okay, this is a rigid solid surface, and say suppose you are blowing air in this direction. Okay, so if you blow air in this direction, if you look at really a fully developed flow, it will have a profile like this. What is this profile? See, you can understand that this wall will provide a very large friction to this air. Okay, so this will become no slip, so the air velocity will be 0 here. Whereas there is a free stream velocity Q, which is already there, which will try to drive the air here. So as you come progressively towards the wall, what you expect that the velocity, it is this will be your average velocity or maximum velocity in this place. However, as you progressively come towards wall, what will happen in this place? V will be equal to 0. Okay, so the typical velocity profile, they look like this. Okay, if you just draw the velocity profile, they will look like this, right? And after certain points, say suppose this particular point, if I draw a line, you may see that there is a gradual reduction in the velocity. This particular part of a fluid flow, okay, this is defined as the thickness of delta, and this particular part is called a boundary layer. What is a boundary layer? If you have a very high speed flow, okay, now the free stream velocity will not be the same near the wall. The free stream velocity, which is Q, this is the free stream velocity, will start reducing near the wall. Okay, and for a thickness delta, at which this free stream velocity will reduce from free stream to 0. And this place is called a boundary layer. Right, and this boundary layer happens for a turbulent flow. For a laminar flow, you know that this is entirely this particular thing will be like this. Okay, why? Again, for a laminar flow, this will be no slip, and say suppose this will be the free stream velocity. It's a very low speed velocity. I'm talking about like if you don't have boundaries. If you have two boundaries, you are learning in fluid mechanics, this will be totally parabolic. But if you don't have anything at the top, for a laminar flow also, you will see that there is a situation where the flow will not be equal to the free stream velocity, but it will have a boundary layer. We'll discuss about this when we talk about this convection problems and all. But for the time being, you just need to know one thing, that when the fluid is flowing across this particular solid wall, I can expect that there are two boundary layers like this in the fluid. So this can be laminar, this can be turbulent. Typically, in case of heat transfer, these are all turbulent. You want a turbulent boundary layer. The reason I'll discuss later. So in this situation, I may expect, even if there is a laminar flow or turbulent flow, the fluid will have two different boundary layers. You will have boundary layer here, boundary layer here, you will have boundary layer here, and you will have a boundary layer here. The boundary layer is always under, see, this is a friction dominated flow. In the boundary layer, the flow is mostly like, laminar flow. Because it is near the wall, because it is engendered by friction. So you can really see there is a boundary layer here. This is the solid wall. There is a boundary layer here. So clearly there is a convective resistance here. There is a conductive resistance here. Then there is a convective resistance here, and which is restricting this Q. Okay, which is coming on the way of this heat transfer Q. And then your temperature is decreasing from TA to T1, T1 to T2, and then T2 to TB. So TB is the temperature here, TA is the temperature here, and across the wall there is a temperature difference of T1 to T2. So how do you interpret? Now you see, for a heat conduction, we had delta X by Ka. So K by delta X, straight away you can see that this can be nothing but K by delta X can be nothing but K by delta. So if this fluid has a thermal conductivity of K, I can straight away say that H is equal to what? K by this delta, this thickness, the thickness of the boundary layer. So you can straight away see this Q convection, which we know that is it's equal to H A into TW minus T infinity. TW means this, T infinity is this. So T2 minus TB is your TW minus T infinity. Here TA minus T1 is your TW. T1 is your TW. TA is T infinity. Now how is the resistance? You can see from here the resistance is 1 by HA, which is not very different from delta X by K. So delta X here will become delta, K is that, and delta by K is 1 by H. So you can see this is 1 by HA. So you can also see the convective equation can also be written as Q equal to delta T by summation of all the resistances. So how do I expect here? So here Q is equal to what? H1 A TA minus T1. H1 means the heat transfer here, the heat transfer coefficient here. Then Ka delta X T1 minus T2, this is through conduction, this is through convection, this is through conduction. And then there is H2A T2 minus TB, which is from the fluid B. I'm just projecting one heat transfer situation in a shell and tube heat exchanger to a simplified system where I can see the rate of heat transfer is nothing but the addition of what? This is the convective part here, this is the conductive part here, and this is the convective part here. So if you just say that TA minus TB is your total temperature difference, what you do, you divide by the total resistance. The resistance here is 1 by H1A, resistance here is delta X by Ka, resistance here is 1 by H2A. Now this particular thing you call as the overall resistance. So here H1, this H1 is your local heat transfer coefficient, H2 is your local heat transfer coefficient, and Ka by delta X is your local resistance. And if you sum up all these three, this you can define U. This U is called that 1 by resistance, okay, of the total system like this. This U is called the overall heat transfer coefficient. So you can express this equation in a very simplified form. Q is equal to UA delta T overall. Okay, now U is like this. Okay, now for a cylinder, for a cylindrical system, you can really imagine that this is for a Cartesian coordinate system. For a cylindrical coordinate system, if this is a cylindrical coordinate system, what will happen to the wall? It will not remain as simple as delta X by K, but it will become ln R0 by Ri by 2 by K. Right? Now, if you normalize this with respect to the area of the inner section. Area of the inner section means, suppose this is AI. See, this cylinder has two radiuses. One is this and one is this. If you normalize this with AI, that is called UI. If you normalize this with respect to A0, that is called U0. This is the overall coefficient, overall heat transfer coefficient expressed in terms of the inner radius. Here inner radius is what? This part. Okay, and then the overall heat transfer coefficient represented in terms of the outer radius. So you can straight away see that first I put it down in the form of a Cartesian coordinate system, and then what I do, I frame it towards the cylindrical coordinate system, and from there I get three different concepts. One is the overall heat transfer coefficient, the overall heat transfer coefficient in the form of inner radius, and overall heat transfer coefficient in the form of the outer radius. Okay, so more or less, I think today's time is up. Okay, just I mentioned very quickly, some of the these two slides actually gives you the different types of insulators and their thermal conductivity. Okay, So these two slides and this particular slide gives you the different types of insulations, and this slide gives you the list of different types of overall heat transfer coefficient. What is the unit of overall heat transfer coefficient? You may see from thermal conductivity, it was watt per meter degree centigrade, and for overall heat transfer coefficient, this will become watt per meter square, because K by delta. That delta actually ensures that there is an additional unit associated with in the denominator. Okay, and this is exactly same as the heat transfer coefficient of H1. Okay, so I stop here today, and you have any questions you can ask. Any questions you have? Why the attendance is so poor today? Any explanation? Aditi, are you there?
Sir, are these lectures uploaded yet?
Yes, all the lectures are uploaded. Yeah, please download. Huh? So Bhargav is there?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, why the attendance is poor? What happened? Energy is down?
Don't know, sir.
Just check with your. What is that?
Sir, yeah. I mean, when they have more than this, I don't know, maybe it's hungry or something.
And any question? Do you have any question, Bhargav?
Sir, no, I'll have to go through the slides once.
Yes, please go through the slides and please let us interact, because the evaluation is coming on 2nd. So you should start gearing up. So I have placed all the lecture notes. Today also I have revised many of the slides during the lecture. So today also I have requested the TAs to upload all the recent lectures. Okay, please go through them. Typically, you may see that first 100 pages are there. Total, we have to cover 300 pages of Hallman. Okay, about 8 chapters. So first 3 chapters will be there in the quiz. Okay, which encompasses about the first 100 pages, and that is the syllabus. That will be the target by next Friday. We are going to finish that much. Okay. Achha, another thing is that we are going to share the tutorials with you much ahead of 2nd. Most probably next Tuesday we will conduct a tutorial. Okay, I'll try to go through most of the syllabus by next lecture, whatever is remaining up to the quiz 1, and we are going to share. I'm going to share with you next Tuesday. Next Tuesday will be a tutorial rather than Friday. Okay, and we'll continue on Friday the remaining part of the lectures, so that you have ample time before to complete your both the tutorials before you come for the quiz. Okay, so if you do not have any questions, so I stop here. Thank you.
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, I had a doubt regarding the tutorials, the solutions that we have to submit. Sir, do they include the questions that have been already discussed in the class?
Yes. All
So,
the questions are answers.
All the questions we have to submit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you should not exclude anything. The entire tutorial, serially from 1 to 12 or 1 to 13, you should do, and then you should submit as a PDF file, a single PDF file.
Okay.
The name of the PDF file should be your name, your roll number, okay, and tutorial number. So suppose Saksham Jain. So Saksham Jain underscore or dash roll number 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 underscore or dash tutorial 1 dot PDF. That should be the name. It will be easier for us then. Okay.
Okay, sir.
And please write your name and roll number at the top, so that even if you forget to name it properly, we are able to identify who has submitted it. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other question?
Sir?
Yeah.
Sir, when we have to submit tutorial?
Tutorial you have to submit by this Friday. You know, this Thursday night, 12 AM, Friday and Thursday and Friday. You know, by Thursday night, 12. Okay. And Friday morning 12. Okay, in between that, you have to submit the tutorials. Anything that is submitted after that, I mean, I will not consider their numbers. I mean, this all electronic, so you are mailing it in a Gmail ID. Anybody submitting later than that, 0. Okay, so it's about a week time. You should be submitting everything by deadline. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.